Throughout the vast expanse of the Lone Star State, the #1 choice of consumers in bottled water is Ozarka Natural Spring Water. Trusted by families since 1905, Ozarka is part of a respected international company that employs more than 4,200 Texans. More than 600 of them buy Ozarka alone. To help meet increasing consumer demand, Ozarka continually seeks out only the finest in natural spring water to supplement its existing sources. Southeast of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, amidst the rolling hills of Henderson County, Ozarka identified a new source which met its high standards. Rohr Spring, located northwest of Athens and 7 miles from Eustis. Situated in an area of plentiful rainfall, this spring is fed by the Carrizo Sands, known to be one of the most prolific aquifers in the area. Conscious of its responsibilities in the stewardship of water, Ozarka conducted hydrogeological tests to make sure that its plans to harvest water from Rohr Spring would not endanger the supply from this renewable resource for nearby neighbors. The company also was mindful of the municipal water supply of the city of Eustis, even though it's miles away. After the test concluded that Ozarka's operation would have minimal impact on total water resources in the area and all required state permits were obtained, the company installed a borehole to tap into the waters of Rohr Spring. Such means of extraction, fully recognized by the FDA, allows for the capture of spring water in its purest state, reducing the possibility of contamination. The amount of water planned to be drawn each year is approximately equal to the amount of water required by one farmer to irrigate 80 acres of corn for one growing season. Ozarka also installed the very latest in state-of-the-art storage facilities to further ensure the pristine quality of the water before shipping it to the company's Fort Worth bottling and distribution center. After completion of the new Rohr Spring installation, area citizens expressed concern that it would have a detrimental effect on their water supplies. Although confident that was not the case, Ozarka voluntarily delayed start of operations. The company also pledged to Henderson County citizens to name an advisory committee to address concerns and to undertake an additional independent study to confirm its own test findings. Several residents agreed to serve as members of the Henderson County Citizens Advisory Committee, and R.W. Hardin and Associates, a respected Austin-based hydrogeological consulting firm, was employed to carry out the independent study. With consultation and on-the-scene oversight from the Texas Water Development Board, Hardin engineers carried out a comprehensive study on the geology and water flow of the spring area. A water drilling rig and crew were brought in to install a series of 5 monitoring test wells at locations approved by the state authorities. With 4 wells within 100 feet of the borehole and 1 500 feet away, the monitoring installations, which will be left permanently by Ozarka, are designed to provide accurate data on the effects of withdrawal of water from Rohr Spring. Hardin Associates engineer Mike Thornhill explained to advisory committee members the facts about the area geology and the water flow.
This illustration shows that the main part of the Carrizo, which is this portion extending many, many miles to the east, is separate from this portion of the Carrizo where Rohr Spring emanates from and where the well will produce water from. So any impact on this part of the Carrizo is impossible. Also, based on some water level data and other information, the Wilcox is essentially a separate aquifer from the Carrizo. Therefore, any impacts on the Wilcox, there will be either none or will be so negligible as to be unnoticeable. So the only impacts could occur in this portion, these Carrizo hills in this area. This is about 6 miles across and about 24 square miles. Another concern that's been raised is the lowering of water levels in nearby wells. During our testing procedures, we will monitor water levels in neighbors' wells. The impacts on these wells will be none to very minimal because of the hydrogeologic conditions that occur. Related to that concern is a third concern, and that's the diminishment of creek flow in the creek below the spring and in other creeks nearby. This picture shows that the impacts will only occur down to an elevation as deep as the screen in this well. Any impacts at elevations below that will not occur, and spring flow that occurs below there will continue. Therefore, the impacts on the stream flow below Rohr Spring will be minimal.
After a week of measuring water levels on the various test wells and the installation of devices to gauge the flow of the spring and the creek that it feeds, Hardin engineers undertook an around-the-clock pumping of 50 gallons of water per minute from the spring for 3 consecutive days. Computer equipment was utilized to document results of the tests in each of the monitoring wells. And engineers carefully monitored and tabulated the record of flow in the spring, both next to the borehole and at the Ozarka site property line several hundred yards away. Those tests confirmed that the creek flow was greater at the edge of the property than at the borehole, thus documenting the fact that other spring sources below the Rohr Spring site feed into the creek, assuring continued ample water supplies for neighboring farms. The results of tests confirmed a number of important findings. The Carrizo is a prolific aquifer that recharges easily in an area of plentiful rainfall. The major portion of the Carrizo Spring sands, which feed area creeks and wells, is totally separated geologically from Ozarka's point of entry and therefore cannot be affected. Continuous pumping resulted in only an 8 to 10% stream flow decrease at the spring site property line. The municipal water supply of Eustis comes from the much deeper Wilcox Formation, therefore cannot possibly be affected. And overall impact was minimal and confined to the Ozarka property itself. This independent study confirms Ozarka's findings previous to undertaking the development of Rohr Spring. The company remains dedicated to the responsible stewardship of the state's renewable resources. Ozarka is confident that it can and will be a good neighbor while continuing to serve Texas consumers.